Коллеги, доброе утро. Я буду говорить по-русски и немного по-английски. Да, сегодня у нас зал с англоговорящими спикерами. Меня зовут Игорь, и я буду помогать отвечать на вопросы, переводить их и представлять ребят. The first speaker is Evan Leybourn. He's the creator of the term business agility, and he will correct me. And he will tell us about certain uncertainty.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Moscow. How are you today? Good? Fantastic. Teach me something. How do I say good morning in Russian? Dobry utro. Dobry utro, Moscow. Меня зовут Evan. And that's the limit of the Russian that I know. So, let me get the keys. Am I going to get slides? That would be helpful. Not necessary, though. Today we're going to talk about business agility. Not Agile, not Scrum, not Kanban, not anything to do with technology. We're going to look at how that works at a corporate level, at a business level. Now, this is fundamentally important because, and the video is not going to play, it's a matter of survival. In the last 30 years, 57% of the Fortune 100 companies in America no longer exist. They have gone bankrupt, they have gone through acquisitions or mergers or divestments, or they've just faded into insignificance. 57%. Just a couple of days ago, Sears in America just declared bankruptcy. This is the kind of market and economy that we operate in today. So business agility isn't about agile, it's about survival. It's about thriving in an agile organization. For the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about what is happening globally. What is happening in companies around the world, in Russia, in Australia, where I'm from, in Europe and Asia and everywhere around the world. I run the Business Agility Institute. We are an independent organization to look at and promote and advocate for business agility. About 6 months ago, we ran a survey of 166 companies around the world, looking at what level of business agility fluency or maturity did they have. It won't surprise you to know that it was disappointing. On average, companies around the world are only just getting started on their business agility transformations. We're looking, so from the statistics, 4.9. Right? This is very, very much in just getting started, walking. Right? When we ran this survey, we asked a number of questions, rating from how do they engage with customers, how do they engage with the ways of working, how do they handle the relationships, and how do they handle mindset, how do they handle culture. Now, there we go. Sorry, wrong slide. Let me take a step backwards. Let me go back in history about a year and a half ago. Before the Institute was started, I was writing a blog article, right? Just the standard blog you write, 500, 600 words, about what I thought business agility was. Now, I was going into surgery that day, just day surgery, and so I put this article online and said, hey, friends, give me some feedback. What do you think? It was a link to a Google Doc. It was a shared document. And what's the first thing you do when you get out of surgery? You check your email. So I checked my email, and we had about 60 people. There was a comment war occurring in a Google Doc about the definition of business agility. This led to the creation of what you see before you. This is what we call the domains of business agility. A series of 3 dimensions, 9 domains centered around the customer. The customer was for us the biggest challenge. What is at the heart of an agile organization? Is it the customer? Is it employees? Is it shareholders? Employees could be at the center. They are the most important person, the most important part of your organization. Shareholders own the company. Right? They're the ones who put the money to run and own and build the capital into that organization. But over a course of several weeks of arguing, we centered on the customer for one very important reason. The customer is why you are in business. Now, I'm going to say something potentially a little controversial. You are not in business to make money. Let me repeat that. You are not in business to make money. You need to make money. And there's a great quote by an author called Frederick Laloux. Profit is like the air. We do not live to breathe, but we do need to breathe in order to live. So think about that. You have to make money, you have to make a profit, but that's not why you're in business. Think about your scorecard, think about your KPIs, think about your organizational, the balanced scorecard that the CEO has. I guarantee 9 out of 10 KPIs relate to the financial health of your organization. There's probably a token KPI that relates to customer satisfaction. But here's the thing. I'm betting no one gets fired if they don't meet that KPI. But if you don't meet your financial targets, people no longer have jobs. This is the business, this is the organizations that we live in today, where we measure the financial status of an organization, and that's all anybody cares about. Except that's not why you're in business. Right? We don't care about the money. We need to make money, but it's the customer. So that's why the customer's at the center. Work. Let's talk about work for a second. This is the domain of Agile. So, a show of hands. This is an Agile conference. Who here has been doing Agile for more than, say, 2 years in their technology function? For less than 2 years? Okay. Some of you didn't put your hand up, so I'm not quite sure where you sit. The ways of working in an organization, this is the domain of Agile. Right? This is the domain of different elements. Technical agility, right? Hands on keyboard. This is how I create things in an agile way. Right? XP, DevOps, if I'm in software. Beyond budgeting for accountants. That's technical agility in a financial space. Process agility, the value stream, the flow of work through a team. Scrum, Kanban, Lean Six Sigma. Enterprise agility, systems thinking. Let me give you a history lesson. Let's go back to the 1980s. In an organization, in the 1980s, what do you think was the slowest team? The team that had the least agility? The software team. It could take 2 to 3 years to bring a software product to market. And that is why, in software, it was logical for Agile, with a capital A, to emerge. There's a book called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. In this book, he talks about a theory, the theory of constraints. In a process, there is a constraining factor, and there will always be a constraining factor. Rather arrogantly, let me introduce Evans' theory of agile constraints. An organization can only be as agile as its least agile division. 30 years ago, that was software. Let's fast forward to about 10 years ago. Where are we? We have Scrum. We're developing software every 2 weeks. Fantastic. Where does it go? Nowhere. It sits in staging until there's a release window, until we are able to deploy into production. So what do? We invent DevOps. Fantastic. We've dealt with the constraint. So let's fast forward to today. We have Scrum. We can build change every 2 weeks. We can deploy change every, what's Amazon's statistic? 11.3 seconds. And yet, at the other end, we're waiting 3 months to recruit somebody. We're waiting 18 months to deploy, to get a budget approved. Right? How agile are you? You're not 11 seconds agile. You're 18 months agile. That's the difference. So today, when we talk about enterprise agility, we're talking about agile across the organization. This is the domain of things like SAFe, beyond budgeting again. Areas around taking agility across not just the value stream, but into the system that is the organization. We then go into the connections domain. So what is business agility? We have a lot more than just ways of working. Otherwise, we're just talking agile. Leadership agility. The relationship that you have with authority, servant leadership, delegation. There are multiple management theories and styles out there, beyond budgeting again, that talk about how organizations lead, how leaders manage, how managers lead, and all of the above. In the middle, we have structural agility, the organization design. Who here has heard of the Spotify model? Yes, it's pretty terrible. That's not true, that's not fair. The Spotify model is actually perfectly fine. Right? It is a particular form of a matrix structure that allows for strong cross-functional teams. Right? But there are many, many other forms. The characteristics of an agile structure: no handoffs, teams working together, maybe not co-located, but certainly different functions in the same team. Right? Able to restructure. An agile organization is one where the teams have accountability, where the teams have authority. Market agility. This is the supply chain. This is where agile contracts come into play. Right? And I could talk for hours just on agile contracts, because we're looking at ways in which, as a vendor or as a supplier, we're able to deliver work in an agile way. That old contract, time, cost, scope, is now completely irrelevant. It does not work. It works in some contexts. I'm being slightly extreme in my statements, right? But those days are passing, and they're passing very quickly. The last three domains are around mindset: learning mindset, collaboration mindset, and ownership. What is a learning mindset? It is a growth mindset. It is the ability to experiment, to adapt. This is the domain of lean startup, right? The domain of fail fast. Collaboration, right? Here's the thing. Who's here is an agile coach? Some of you? Yes? You guys do not put your hands up, do you? This is not something you guys. All right. I'm going to stop asking you questions. So, ask pretty much any agile coach, right? And they're going to talk about, we want to break down the silos, right? We want to bring teams together, right? Break down those silos in that organization that's stopping us from working. Rubbish. You cannot break down the silos. Do you want to know why? Because we're monkeys. We have a monkey brain. That monkey brain forms tribes. We will always form tribes. It is very natural for humans to form those tribes. What does that mean? That means when you're designing an organization, we want to design it for tribes. And I don't mean Spotify tribes, I mean monkey tribes. Right? We want to design it to have tribes. We want to design it so that there is us and them, because there will always be us and them. The difference being, we want us and them to be constructive, not destructive. Right? When us is software development and them are testers, we have a problem. Because the software developers will blame the testers and the testers will blame the software developers. Those two teams are in the same value stream. And who's the only person that suffers? The customer. Because the customer doesn't care about our tribes. The customer doesn't care about the silos that we have. They care about the product. So instead, collaboration, we want to work together. We bring software developers, testers, BAs, everybody into a single team. We're still going to have tribes, but let's make product tribes, product A, product B. We're no longer against value streams. I was working with a bank, right? They got rid of their IT function entirely, right? They had credit card, core banking, wealth, institutional banking, and all the developers and testers went into the lines of business. So think about it, if you're building a digital bank, why would the credit card function outsource a core part of that, building those technology areas, those technology systems, to another function? It's a handoff. They brought them all in, so there were developers and testers attached to credit card. Other organizations build their organization around customer journeys. Right? DBS Bank, one of my favorite examples, went through a process improvement program. They call them PEPs, PEPs, where they literally said, we have a problem with customer satisfaction, so let's improve that. They picked one process, the lost credit card process. And what did? They optimized it, which is fine. Right? They did human-centered design, they looked and they made it more human, they spoke to customers, they found out the problem in the process, and they got it down to one day. If you lose your credit card, if you lose your wallet, you call up DBS, and in one day you get a replacement credit card. This was amazing for Singapore. But then they did something that they'd never done before. They called a customer. They said, you've just been through our new lost credit card process. What do you think? And the customer's answer was, it was great, but where's my debit card? Because she hadn't lost the credit card, she'd lost her wallet. And this was a huge turning point for DBS when they realized that the customer, they don't care that there's a credit card function and there's a banking function, right? Because the customer doesn't deal with a credit card function, the customer deals with the bank. So when I call up the help desk and say, I've lost my wallet, I don't want to go through one process for the credit card and one process for the debit card. I just want the bank to deal with it. And they did that. They've now started to build teams around journeys, where this is the lost credit card journey. There's another organization in India. They're a single product company. There's about 100 staff, and they've built their entire company around customer experiences. They used to have an iOS team, an Android team, a web team, a back-end team, a design team, and so forth. All right, but all that happened was that the iOS team would be at a certain point in development, the Android team would be 1 or 2 features ahead, and so depending on what platform you were on, you would have more or less features. This was unacceptable to customers who expect a level of hey, they've got it, why don't I? So this organization said, okay, let's structure our company around, this is the onboarding experience. This team consists of iOS developers, Android developers, back-end, customer experience. And you're accountable for the first 24 hours of a customer's onboarding experience. You're the communications team. You're accountable for the communications platform. You're the finance team. You're accountable for the payment platform, so how people pay money into the system. Oh, and by the way, the CFO's in your team as well, because you also handle the finance for the entire organization, because that's your accountability. Right? So that was one team with an Android developer, an iOS developer, a customer experience person, and 3 accountants in one team, because they owned that customer experience. So this is business agility. Right? I've given you a bit of an overview, because I want you to understand where we are in the world. Right? This is a matter of survival. Right? 57% of companies no longer exist, Fortune 100. So what does that mean for you? That means that if you want to survive, if you want to thrive, you need to start adopting some form of business agility. Right? Unless your market is predictable, stable, and unchanging, which I doubt any of you do operate in that kind of environment because they are very rare today, you need business agility. So where do you go? So in this report that we did, and unfortunately I don't have any copies on me because I gave them all away yesterday, we looked at different things. So this one. Quite interestingly, organizations that transform their finance and their HR departments have the biggest impact, right? Quite significantly. If you're transforming technology or product management or the PMO, the traditional agile spaces, that's Scrum, that's safe, then you get some improvement. You're transforming finance and HR and sales and marketing, you have a much greater impact. The ability to transform, the ability to adapt is increasing. But these are also the divisions where the fewer organizations are touching. Only 21% of companies that we surveyed were transforming HR, and yet they had the best outcomes out of any of those companies. It also depends on who's going to lead your journey. Right? This is one of my favorite charts because the line is so smooth. Right? If your business agility, if your agile and business agility transformation is being led by the board of directors, you are 25%, or you have 25% greater agility than organizations whose transformation is being led, this is on average, by a single line of business. Right? So if you're the head of application development and you're adopting agile and business agility in your division, right, the ability for your company to be resilient in the market is quite limited. If the board does it, well, that's pretty amazing. There we go. This one should come as no surprise to any of you. Right? Company size correlates directly to business agility. It is really hard for a big company to be agile. Right? I think we all know that subjectively, we all feel that, but it is true. Now, interestingly, this doesn't mean that large organizations can't have business agility. Right? This is an average. We had some outliers. There were 7 companies, 10,000 plus employees, who were looking at, what's the word I'm looking for? That were looking at, there were 7 companies of 10,000 plus employees who matched the business agility fluency of some of the small companies. But these are companies who've been doing it for many, many years. This was my favorite outcome or finding from this report. Business agility is a matter of perception. Right? Now, when the CEO of a company responded, or an individual contributor of a company responded, we got a certain response. And I'll be honest, they were pretty close, within about 5% of each other. Right? We expected a much broader range, but it was actually pretty close. Until we asked external consultants to do an independent evaluation. And they were on average about up to about 20% lower. So when you assess yourself, we seem to have a deluded idea of how agile we are. But the external people said, actually, you know what? You're not quite as good as you think you are. Or the other alternative is the external people didn't have all the information. That's also possible. Right? So at some point, there is a perception gap. And that's something that when you're doing these kind of transformations, you're going to actually have to try and manage and adopt. So I want to pause for a second and just talk about one practice. There are 1,000 practices around business agility. Right? And we've looked at hundreds of companies in our library. And by the way, as you walk out, there's some details about the library near the door. We have nearly 100 case studies on companies around the world adopting business agility. One of the easiest things that you can do is start to change the way that leaders view information. Now, if someone asks me, where do you start? Where do you begin with business agility? Well, the answer is it depends. But if you force me to give you an answer, I would say change how you measure. Change the organizational KPIs, because you get the behavior that you ask. You get the behavior that you measure. So something like an enterprise visibility room is a very good way of showing what is happening. We have case studies from Blue Cross, we have case studies from Amex, American Express, we have case studies from New Zealand Post Group, all using something similar to this, where the executives have a room or some sort of board where they're seeing everything that's happening, the financial health, the primary initiatives, the problems that are happening in the organization. Think of this as Kanban for executives. It's not just to do, doing, done. It's not just a work stream Kanban board. This is looking at every piece of information that an executive needs in order to make a decision. DBS Bank, one of my favorite examples, uses a fairly similar thing, but they've added what they call confidence meters, where they'll have a sheet of paper, green to red, or red to green, and there are 5 columns. How confident are you that you're going to achieve this initiative? How confident are you that you're going to achieve the next milestone? How confident are you that you have the right people? Number of decisions outstanding and number of issues outstanding. And the leader just puts post-it notes on this board in different places. And imagine, you're the CEO. You walk into a room, there are these colored pieces of paper all around, right? And you can tell at a glance that this one, I'm going to talk about this one. Why aren't you confident that you're going to deliver this one? Right? So rather than a status report where every leader, every team talks about what they're doing, it literally is, I only care about the things which I think we're going to fail at. That's leadership. That's leadership agility, because that's delegation. Don't tell me what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. I care. Tell me if you need me to get something out of the way. Tell me if you need me to make life easier for you so that you can do your job. That is leadership agility. In the last couple of minutes I've got left, let me share with you some of the challenges. So number 1 challenge, leadership. No surprise. Organizations, 23% of organizations said that leadership was one of their top, I think it was 3 challenges we asked for. Lack of buy-in and org design were the next ones. Fairly straightforward. Some of the quotes. I don't normally read slides, but I will read this one given English. Some of my favorites. This challenge is getting to business agility rather than software agility. There is an institutionalized command and control culture that, although there is executive desire to change, makes old habits very hard to break. These are the challenges that organizations are having today. These are the challenges that organizations are trying to overcome. All right, some recommendations. So number 1, Evans' theory of agile constraints. You can only be as agile as your least agile division, and that's not software. That's not IT anymore. So find the constraint and fix the constraint. All right, reducing handoffs. You do not want, in a single value stream, from idea to customer, it should be contained within a single team as best as you can. Right? Get board level buy-in. We saw that transformations led by the board, 25% more successful. Get the board involved. Now, let's wrap up. Why the hell should you care? Right? Yes, we spoke about thriving and surviving and company failure, right? But why the hell should you care? Top 3 reasons. Market success, right? So, you can't see it here, but I think it's 18% of companies said that they have had financial success in the market, as in more clients, more customers, than since adopting business agility than before. Right? One of my favorite quotes, right? Business agility has given us a competitive advantage and allowed us to react quickly and pivot. This results in faster customer acquisition, faster time to value, and bigger market penetration. Right? That one, and it's anonymized, so I won't tell you who it was, but that was a 25, 30,000 person company. So that was a big company attributing bigger market penetration to business agility. So I'm going to pause there, open up for questions. Thank you very much.
Коллеги, у кого есть вопросы, да, пожалуйста, вот один микрофон там стоит, и еще микрофон могу я передать.
No, did it all make sense? It's a very complicated topic, come on. We have a question. There. It's always embarrassing waiting for the first question.
Okay. On one of your slides, you said that, and it's logical, that the bigger the company is, the more difficult it is to implement Agile. So I am from the oil and gas company. So how would you characterize our industry, and what would you suggest for us to make this implementation easier?
Yep.
What are the ways?
So I used to work for a mining company, so I completely understand where you're coming from. Business agility in these large organizations, the challenge is in many places cultural, right? Oh, we can't do business agility, we can't do Agile, that's for those software, that's for Google, that's for Amazon and Apple, not for BHP Billiton, right? But what we find is that when companies feel complacent, they don't want to change. But in mining and oil and gas as well, prices are going down, the iron ore price is going down, the oil prices are going, ish. So there's always a challenge. Now, use the threat of market disruption. They always thought, oh, we're safe, we're oil, we're safe, we're iron ore and coal. Like, no, you're not safe. Right? Your entire industry is going to change. You need to be more efficient, you need to be more productive. Oh, don't play the efficiency game. Unless you have a really inefficient company, right, the days of efficiency are over. For the last so think of a CEO. As a CEO, you need to make higher profits. I can make higher profits by either getting more customers, selling more product, or by producing product cheaper, right, and keeping the price the same. Now, for the last 30, 40 years, companies have been reducing costs. They've been becoming more efficient. They've been becoming cheaper. In fact, most agile transformations have been predicated on we're going to do stuff more efficiently. It's going to be cheaper to do the work. The problem is most organizations, mining, oil and gas, likewise, have squeezed the efficiency tap as far as it can go. There's not much left in terms of efficiencies to squeeze out of most organizations. Your organization may be different, it may be very inefficient, but generally not. Just play the productivity card, right? It's not about doing it cheaper, it's about selling more, right? Making more money through serving customers, being able to tap into new markets, right, quicker, being able to pivot and adapt as an organization. So play the threat of disruption and play the productivity, we're going to open new markets, and that will attract the executive's attention. Right? Ways of working, agile, don't even go there. Right? It's important, and it's want to be how you're going to do it, but unless they're particularly bought into what we're talking about today, trying to sell an agile transformation to the CFO is going to get you laughed out of the room. Right? Find something that the CFO wants, find something that the executive wants, more money, right? Threat of existence, and use that to help them catalyze that transformation. Right? More specifically, as change the KPIs if you can. The first thing you should try and do is get them to start measuring things other than money. Right? And that's going to help a long way. One measure, cost of delay. Fantastic thing to start measuring. Right? Rather than measuring efficiency or velocity, start measuring how much are we losing by not starting something sooner. And so in some organizations, the cost of delay can be millions of dollars per week. Right? Every week we don't do something is costing us $1 million. It's a fantastic measure to get the CFO to start measuring. Other questions? Anton?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Anton, and I would like to ask you, you're saying a lot about measuring, and what metrics do we have, what metrics can we measure to know that our organization becomes more business agility, but accepts surveys? I think we have some practice with surveys, and always people, not always, but a lot of people think that maybe a KPI, I will put more here than I have. So what metrics do we have that are not from survey?
So when you're measuring an outcome, we have both direct and indirect measures. So a direct measure is something like, if I'm measuring customer satisfaction, I'll use a survey. Right? But I also have indirect measures, right? Such as money. Right? New customers, staff satisfaction. I can have a survey. I could put a smiley face, sad face button at the exit of each door. Right? Or I could look at an indirect measure like attrition or employee retention as an indicator, an indirect measure of customer satisfaction. It's indirect because there are other factors that can influence that number. Cost of delay is a great measure. I don't like, in teams and product development companies, I don't like measuring things like velocity. It's what we would call a vanity metric. It's not something that's really going to help you. You can measure things like cycle time or lead time, mean time to recovery, MTTR, are good measures in a technology space. But at a business level, you want to be measuring business outcomes. And those measures depend on what outcomes that are important to you. Right? But remember, it's not money. Right? Money can be a measure, but money is an indicator of success. It is not the goal of success. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
There was another question there.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Kate, and I have a question about what do you think about I'm sorry. What do you think about outsource service? For example, there are a lot of outsource service, and in your diagram we saw that, for example, the team should be consistent, and all the team should see the goal and think how to achieve it. What about outsource?
Okay. Okay. There's a lot of answers to that question. So let me give you 3 answers. So number 1, it's about trust. Right? Could I get the slides back for a second? Trust is going to be, do I have it? No, damn it. Sorry. You can take it away. I don't have the slide I was looking for. If you're going to hire somebody, a carpenter, to help renovate your kitchen, right, then we're going to start at a reference trust. I don't trust that carpenter. I trust Yelp or Google or whoever recommended the carpenter to me. All right? We sign a contract. Now I trust the contract. I still don't trust that carpenter. Right? I trust the contract that we have that says you're going to do X for me. It's going to cost this. It's going to deliver this. I don't trust you. I trust the contract. But then 6 months later, you've done the kitchen. You've done a great job. Now we're going to do the bathroom. Right? I'm not going to go back to Google and ask for a recommendation. I'm going to come to you because I now trust you. I identify with you. It's called identification level trust. Now, something amazing can now happen. I've got $10,000, 50,000 rubles. What can you do for me? I can't ask that question of someone who I don't trust. I don't know what it's worth. I don't know if you're any good. I don't know if you're going to rip me off. But I can ask that question if I trust you. And now we can be agile. Now we can adapt. You know what? Let's put, maybe not this kind of tiling. Can we do a different type? Right? Now, there is a layer above this called partnership, which is about shared outcomes. My metaphor breaks down. You're not going to enter a joint venture with a carpenter. But Rolls-Royce does this with their aircraft engines. It's called power by the hour, where when you lease one of their engines, you pay for every minute it's in the air, and you don't pay if it's on the ground. So Rolls-Royce and the airline make money if a plane is flying. Nobody makes money if the plane is on the ground. Win-win. So those kind of partnership arrangements of outcome-based contracts are becoming a little bit more prevalent. So point number one, in a service and supplier arrangement, you need to have trust within both parties. Right? Point number two, find a form of contract that enables agility. An outcome-based contract, T&M, is a great agile contract if you can. What we did in IBM, I used to work for IBM, was we had what we called fixed price and constraints. So we would fix a price, but we'd have a variable scope so that we wouldn't commit to any scope. We'd commit to like 20% of the scope. Right? But then we would have a whole series of other constraints around quality, around mean time to recovery, around ROI, rates, so that you as a client of ours could trust that even though the scope is completely variable, right, you could trust that the work we were going to do would be fit for purpose because of the other constraints in the contract. So that's the kind of thing that you need to put into place, and that's part of market agility, by the way, back to my diagram. That's what you're looking at in market agility, those contracts, the ability to have your suppliers and your supply chain to be agile. All right. Now, I think I'm pretty much out of time, correct? Thank you very much. I'm around for the rest of the day. If you have any questions, come and say hi.